Well, hello there, you amazing, amazing, beautiful, wonderful people. I hope you are all well on this terrific, terrific Tuesday. That's it. I did have to double check then. You know when you're saying something, you're thinking something else. But no, it is Tuesday. You're looking absolutely amazing. I'm going to get straight into the meat and potatoes, as I've got a video to show you that is apparently a guy who's done an interview that is saying that his drinking buddy was Bryan Kohberger's professor or something. But we're going to listen to it together as mainstream media continues to talk about Bryan Kohberger and to try and push out this mainstream media narrative that has been consistent throughout. The only thing that's been consistent throughout, unlike Dylan Mortensen. Well, that's probably unfair to say. She's been inconsistent, but the story that they've been telling us about Dylan Mortensen and the other witness stroke proximity affector, their story is constantly changing, but we have to ignore that. That's apparently normal for Idaho. But anyway, did I say you're looking amazing? You are. You foxy fucker, you. Just for those who love the swearing. So this is the guy. Check this out. Let's listen to him. Let's listen to what he's got to say for himself. Obviously, I do have to periodically stop him throughout for fair usage purposes. We do not want to get struck down with furious anger. But here we go.
My name is Brad Pierce, and Bryan Kohberger's professor is my drinking buddy. So I am a freelance journalist and writer. I live in my hometown of Palouse, Washington, which is a town of 1,000 people that is 15 minutes to the north of the University of Idaho. And at the time that the murders took place, very shocking for this area. You know, it would be shocking anywhere, but there are very few homicides here. This guy, John Snyder, who I know pretty well from the bar. My wife is a bartender, and
I love that when they talk about that nothing happens here. No, nothing happens. Very, very shocking. Would be shocking anyway, but it's rarely shocking here because nothing really happens. Nothing really happens. That's why when things do happen, people don't know what to do. And that's including the people who are involved in the crimes themselves and law enforcement. They also don't know what to do.
His favorite bartender, so they're pretty close. You know, he would come in after work for a beer, and he was complaining all semester about this horrible grad student that he was TAing for him, and you know how difficult he was to be around, how he was doing a bad job, how he treated the students badly, everything like that. And you know, it's pretty normal to complain about your job. That's why people go to the bar after work. But
fucking amazes, you've done it. Don't it make you laugh, right? The only people who have kicked off and had a bad word to say about Bryan Kohberger are the people at the university, the students at the university, and the ones that have obviously been allowed to have their stories said on mainstream media. It's like what I said to people before. If they interviewed 100 students and 90 of them students had not a bad word to say about Bryan Kohberger, but then the other 10 fucked him over, then you can guarantee the only stories that you're going to hear are the 10. And that's just the way that this goes. But obviously, the mainstream media have got to push a specific narrative. And in video 2 later on today, we're going to talk about the gatekeepers of this crime, because this is all part of it. This is all part of it, what you're seeing here.
You know, on December 30th, Bryan Kohberger was arrested, and it took me a few hours, but when I realized it was a Washington State University criminology graduate student, it occurred to me like, oh, this has to be John's graduate, like John's TA he was complaining about all semester. Then shortly after the new year, he came in, looking so bad, my wife commented on it and just showed her the newspaper with Bryan Kohberger on the front of it, and that's when it was confirmed. Overall, you know, there was a gag order on this case forever, which I actually found out that he wasn't under until kind of the end, because he was only going to get called as a sentencing witness or whatever. But anyway, once that ended, I knew he hadn't got to the media, so I got him to speak to me because we're friends. So we sat down for pictures at the bar.
So, yeah, the gag order situation. So this guy was going to be brought in potentially at the end for sentencing to potentially have a pop. unbeknownst to everyone at this stage, it was never going to go to trial. Never going to go to trial. All a facade. All a facade. Obviously, all a facade, because if it was ever going to go to trial, it would have fucking gone to trial. The fact that it didn't is indicative that this never was intended to go to trial.
And we spoke for about 2 hours about his background and the experience of working with Bryan Kohberger. And I mean, in short, John's background is that he was a public defender for almost 30 years.
Fucking hell. There we go. There we go. Public defender. The second public defender in Bryan Kohberger's world to put the fucking boot in then. Him and Taylor.
Makes him pretty well known here. It's not a very high population area. You know, it's one of those well-respected public facing jobs where you kind of get to know everyone. And, you know, he did that for quite some time. And then he got the opportunity to teach at WSU, and he decided to take it because he could feel that, you know, an amount of burnout was coming for having worked as a public defender with a huge caseload for so long. And, you know, around here, about half the population are students. So there's not a lot of serious crime, but there's a lot of, you know, getting DUIs or minors drinking or marijuana charges before marijuana was legal here, etc. So mostly, you know, young kids screwing up. He really wanted to make
you laugh, doesn't it? Half of the population are kids, but you don't really have any trouble. Don't really have any trouble. Fuck off, mate. You can go into the crimes and what have you that are in these areas, and we know that there's crimes. We know that they have issues with narcotics. We know that there's fucking teams and groups that are trafficking around these areas. We know that there has been stings with PIs set up previously where students have been either used or utilised to fuck other people over to try and make out like nothing ever happens. Get the fuck.
They got good representation, and, you know, it wouldn't ruin their lives too much. But he moved on to
good representation. Rich kids, good representation won't ruin the lives or do anything like that, because mummy and daddy will pay to make it go away, or they'll be part of the sororities and fraternities. And no one will ever know about it because that'll get brushed under the fucking rug. Look at old Timmy Reed. What happened to Timmy Reed? Poor little Timmy. Got to the point where he was sleeping with a bladed weapon under his pillow because he was fearing for his life. Had the shit kicked out of him, and the university weren't going to do fuck all about it. All of a sudden now, we've heard no more about it, and you can only imagine why. Money, mate.
And that went well. He's well liked by his students and colleagues. But then it was the case that, you know, in June of 2022, someone came to introduce himself and said, you know, I'm your new TA. My name is Bryan Kohberger. At the time, he thought he was kind of odd, didn't have a lot of, you know, charisma or that sort of thing. But
so if you don't have charisma, then you're fucking odd. Let's before we delve further into this to what this prick's got to say, let's just see whether the ASD that Bryan Kohberger clearly has, that he is, you know, he's a diverse individual. And that, let's see how that factors into things. Let's see if this guy, who is apparently an older guy who's worked in fucking law before, and he's facing burnout, so decides to go and work with a load of kids at a university because that's going to make him feel better. And he's seemingly at an age where he don't fucking understand about neurodiversity. Obviously, I'm prejudging him, but I can see where this is going very quickly.
Fairly normal in academia. It didn't really stand out. And then, you know, the semester started, and he quickly, as he described it, was, you know, disabused of the notion that he was going to get any real work out of him. There was, you know, a bit of a scheduling conflict, so he didn't see him all that much. But even so, he didn't go to work very much. He didn't get the papers graded. And when he did try to do any work, it was, you know, kind of trying to prove how smart he was, even though, according to John, he's not really very bright whatsoever. And, you know, he wasn't getting along with the students. He was creepy.
Not very bright, but then another, obviously, professor at another university would say that he is bright, he is clever, and there is multiple people, including people, in fact, in law enforcement, who would say that he is fairly intelligent. But this guy says that he isn't actually that intelligent. But then you could argue that if Bryan Kohberger was the person who did this crime, then that intelligence is going to be brought under scrutiny. So take that as you will.
The girls, one of them emailed a friend saying that she thought that her TA looked like a serial killer. But despite this,
again, fucking students, always is throughout all this, like on the grander scheme of things, and I'll ask you to let me know down below, who have we heard say bad things about Bryan Kohberger? I saw a report the other day that someone else had, like some other female who had an interaction with Bryan Kohberger, I think that was actually after the crime, had added him to her Christmas card list because he was so fucking nice and charming. But students putting the boot in. Do you know what I mean? People can't see that a guy who's accused of killing students, all of the bad press that he's getting and saying, oh, he's always looked mental. Oh, he looked like a serial killer. Or he's thick as shit. Students, people around academia.
said that he still saw him quite a lot because Kohberger would regularly go to his office. And
so 1 minute he don't fucking see him and they've got a scheduling conflict, and now he sees him quite a lot.
To him about various inane, immature, uninteresting things at the end of the day when John obviously wanted to go home. And he said that he came to realize this was a control technique where Bryan felt like he was in control as long.
Bryan Kohberger's neurodiverse, you fucking dozy twat. Do you know what I mean? And just because he's trying to have a fucking conversation with you about something that you might not be fucking interested, just be a common, decent person. Just be a common, decent fucking person. I'll tell you what, I'd even go as far as to say, Bryan Kohberger, if he's innocent of this crime, right? I mean, guilty of this crime, because he could be. Ultimately, I'm not sitting here saying Bryan Kohberger's fucking innocent of this crime, so I don't know. And to be fair, that should fucking scare you, because you're at a point now where this has all come to pass, and the reality is we don't really know anything about this case. This case is an absolute ball of wool. Just a mishmash mosh of mess. But Bryan Kohberger, every single person who has come into contact with this guy since he moved over to this place, bearing in mind he is neurodiverse, has treated him like some sort of arsehole. Just been fucking horrible. And you think to yourself, the guy's got fucking neurodiversity, issues going on, and it don't seem that one person has been able to actually sit back and go, for someone who was neurodiverse and the issues and challenges that he faced early on and getting himself into academia and wanting to push himself, he was a good, solid bloke. No, it's about fucking putting the boot in at every single opportunity you get. Oh, well, I'm not interested in talking to him. He stopped me from going home from work early. Oh, bore off, you twat.
He was able to waste his time. And I thought that was very interesting because I've not really known anyone that does that. Like I've never perceived that's happening to me before. And, over time he started.
No, because you're the one who does it to other people. Don't they sometimes say? Oh, fuck. That's funny.
Following him around. John called it his terrier routine. Bryan would be yapping at his heels while he was doing things. In one instance, John was going to pick up something from his wife for a Christmas party, and Kohberger followed him down the hill, talking behind him. And he said that his wife was so disturbed just by seeing him and his presence that she basically flinched all the way to the other side of the car.
Oh, fuck off, man. So Bryan Kohberger wants to have a conversation with somebody. He's neurodiverse, wants to have a chat. This guy wants to fuck off and get home. And his wife, she's also someone who looks at somebody and is creeped out by him. But for what reason? What? Because she fucking knows that she can't get away and get to doing what she wants to do because this guy won't shut the fuck up. Do you know what I mean? Oh my God.
Just because she had both been hearing him complain about the guy, but that's also just kind of.
There you go. She'd heard him complain, so she straight away. That'd be no different to me. Do you know what I mean? If I whinged and moaned and fucked up about someone, Mrs. Harsh would immediately not like him. She'd be the same thing. She'd come off on the back foot with it.
The reaction that people had to being around him, it's very much a contrast to that oh, when you hear like a serial killer's neighbor say like, oh, he was the nicest guy, you never would have suspected anything. Kohberger was not at all covering up that he was at least a very unpleasant person.
Because he was neurodiverse. This is just disgusting. This is just another disgusting attack on someone who is, and I know I keep repeating it, and I apologize for being repetitive, for the repetitive nature of what I'm saying. But you have to, if you put that into context, it changes the whole dynamic of what's been said. In fact, I'm tired of listening to this twat, and I can't be bothered to stare up his fucking snout any longer either. But this is it just carries on in this vein of Bryan Kohberger being neurodiverse, people having a fucking problem with it because he wants to talk about stuff or he wants to have a chat when it's not convenient for them to listen, and just to go on the attack and try and make out that his ASD traits are somehow again indicative of him being a killer. This is how far we've got. I did a video the other day speaking about the exact same fucking thing. This has become an attack on neurodiversity and how people can speak about these complex things that they have to cope with and deal with, and how they cope and deal with things, and how they talk and how they don't talk, and how they act and react, and utilize that to I don't know, to bolster the claims that Bryan Kohberger was a psychopathic killer. The sad thing is Bryan Kohberger has put himself in a position where he's pled guilty to these crimes, so it makes it very, very difficult to try to offer him any form of, I don't know, just to be on his side, because ultimately, if he did this crime, then he's where he needs to be. He's where he deserves to be. The issue is, in this case, is that there are so many fucking issues with it in the background, with stories changing and lies and things being manipulated and things being held away from the public, that those things don't go away. So I can't ignore everything else just because Bryan Kohberger has pled guilty to this crime. I can't just think, well, that's all right, he's pled guilty, so let's fucking ignore every other red flag that there is in this case and just say, well, the ends justify the means then, because that's a dangerous road to go down. But this, just let me know down below what you think, and I will catch you all in the next one. Mwah.